Hello, everybody. It's Connie Stewart with SimplySimpleStamping.com. Thanks so much for stopping by because it's time for another Tuesday tip. And today we're going to be talking about a really amazing technique called the split negative. I am so excited to teach this one to you. It's really unique. I've got some tips and tricks to make it easy for you. And the really cool part about this is when we create one card, it's actually automatically going to make another, because we're going to be using a split negative. So we're going to use the negative to create another card. Are you ready to learn how? Great. Get your heat tool and your embossing powder. We're going to need it on today's tip. Let's go get started. So when I say split negative, hopefully you can see what I mean. This is the technique I want to teach you. But what's great, when we create one card, it's automatically going to create the other one. And we're just going to switch out our split negatives. Are you ready to learn how? All right, here we go. Let's talk about the supplies you need to create my first card. Lots of black and white today. So I have two card bases. I have basic black and basic white thick. These are the same size. These are 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4.25. So that's going to fit into a medium or A2 size envelope. These pieces are basic black and our regular basic white. These are all three the same size, 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And the last two pieces of cardstock, also basic black and basic white. These really can be scraps. They are for the front sentiment. Mine are cut about 2.5 by 4 inches. Now, the last thing that's crucial to this technique is a Stamparatus. Guys, this is really going to be a must-have when creating this, because we have got to ensure that these two images are exactly set at the same place on both cards. All right, let's get things kicked off here with a piece of the basic black and the basic white. These were the 3 3/4 by 5 inches. I'm going to bring in my Stamparatus because the first one we want to do, we're going to start with our basic black. I'm going to be featuring the Lovely and Lasting bundle today. I love the Lasting label punch, and it works really well. But the reason I chose this stamp set is I needed a really big image. So when you're looking through the stamps that you already have, look for things that have a pretty good sized image in them. The Embossing Buddy, this is from the Embossing Additions Tool Kit. So do you see how I'm just kind of rubbing that Embossing Buddy all over my black cardstock? I know you're seeing some of that white powder on there. Don't worry, we're going to be able to buff that off. The reason I am doing that is because I'm going to be using some white embossing powder. And let me tell you, I want to make sure my surface is absolutely clean, meaning there's no oils from my hands, hand lotion, anything. If I touch my face and I touch this, embossing powder is going to want to stick to everything. So this is going to ensure that my black cardstock will only accept what I want it to, which is a VersaMark ink pad. So I'm going to ink up my stamp here in the VersaMark. Now, VersaMark is perfect for embossing. It is a clear ink. I probably over inked, but we're fine. I just kind of went going there, didn't I? All right, we're going to bring our Stamparatus over our plate. Give that a really, really good press. So VersaMark is clear. It can also be used as a watermark, but like I said, it is perfect for embossing. Can you see that image on there? All right, we are going to remove our Stamparatus. Don't let it go too far. Oh, and for heaven's sakes, please do not remove this because we're going to need it again in that exact same place. Don't let this go anywhere. This embossing powder comes in black, white, and clear. I added a lot of embossing powder, but you can see I just tap off the extra here into my tray. And now I can take that and I can pour this right back in to my cup so I can keep reusing it. All right. So this little bottle, even though it seems little, it's going to last you a long, long time. All right, we're going to bring in our heat tool. Now, I'm going to tell you one of the tips with using the heat tool is to let it warm up for about 30 seconds before we go and put this here on our cardstock. So I'm going to heat this up. While that is heating up, if you discover any what I call embossing boogers, like anything has gotten on that cardstock, the embossing tool kit or additions kit comes with a great brush. So you could brush off any little extras that show up because we want this to be absolutely pure black And the only white we want to show is where we put that embossing powder. All right, my heat tool has been warmed up. And you can see I'm probably a good 5 inches or so away from my cardstock. You don't want to get too close, but you notice I'm just kind of continually moving my heat tool. Right now what I'm doing is I'm warming up that embossing powder. Let's get that little toasty warm, and then the magic's going to happen. You're going to suddenly see what is kind of a dull white. Now it's turning bright white as we melt that embossing powder. This is what's going to give us an absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous image. You want to just make sure everything is good and melted. When it's melted, that's when you stop. You don't want to keep going, but I do like to make sure I got all the edges. That looks great. I'm going to let this cool off because that embossing powder is still warm. I wouldn't want to try to get any of that embossing buddy powder. I don't want to touch that yet. Let's set that aside to cool, but that's okay because we need to create our negative. So remember, we did not remove our stamp from our Stamparatus. That was very important. I'm now going to come in with a Memento black ink pad. Now you can, if you'd like, you could go ahead and clean this stamp. I like to use my chamois for that. So that stamp is clean. I'm going to ink it up with my black. I'm going to tell you, I didn't do a great job inking it up. I'm going to make sure my cardstock is pushed all the way into that corner. And we're going to give that a press here onto our white cardstock. Now, I'm just going to tell you right now, it's not going to look great. It's going to look a little faded. And with this technique, I really want this black ink to be really deep and dark because it's going to be up against this cardstock. So this may take, looks like it's time for me to re-ink a black ink pad. What do you guys think? I'm going to go over it again. See, the Stamparatus is going to ensure that I'm getting that right where I want it. Now that's looking better, but you know, third time's a charm. Again, as I said, I think it's time to re-ink my ink pad. You know, it's always when you're on video that you realize that needs to be done. All right, let's do that one more time. Again, making sure it's pressed into that corner. You also notice I'm giving a press all over my stamped image. All right, let's see what we got. Oh, that is looking gorgeous, don't you think? So now when we put that up against this, it's looking really, really nice. All right, guys, we are done with the Stamparatus. So I am going to give this a clean. I'm not going to remove it just in case. You know, there's always that opportunity. Something could go wrong. We want to make sure we leave that right there. So I'm going to set my Stamparatus off to the side. Now that this is nice and cool, I'm just going to come in with a cloth. This is just one that I keep here in my stamp room. Just buff away any of that white powder that came from the embossing buddy. If you've missed any of the measurements for my cards today, hey, why don't you go grab the free download I have waiting for you? You can find this download at simplysimplestamping.com, or you can take the easy route. Look down in the YouTube description for a direct link. It will take you to my blog post for today, and you'll see additional photos, and there's a great big blue button that says grab your download. Here you'll have everything I used on today's cards, the measurements. You can even come back and watch the video again if you need a refresher, and of course, order any of the supplies right there from simplysimplestamping.com. Hey, are you ready to take those cards? We've done our embossing. Now let's go and create those split negative cards. Here we go. So I'm going to use my layering circles dies, but guys, you could easily use the circles here from the stylish shape. So whichever one you have is going to work. I'm going to go with the layering circles. Now I want to kind of decide what size circle do I want. You know, don't go too big. We want to make sure we have room around our image. I think this one's going to work quite well, actually. It's going to give me and show off enough of the negative space, but it's not going to overpower. I have base plate 1, my thin die adapter 2, and a number 3 cutting plate. It's kind of interesting, just as I put these two pieces together, I noticed that the black turned out to be just a smidge bigger than the white. I'm actually glad that happened because this is going to give me the opportunity to tell you, when you put these pieces together, think about how they were in your Stamparatus. So in my case, it's all over here on this left bottom side, this left bottom corner. We want to make sure those are lined up perfectly because that's how it went into my Stamparatus. I'm going to lay this here, both of these together. I'm going to put my layering circle die right where I want it. Of course, you can get creative where you put yours. I'm going to gently lay my cutting plate right on top, another cutting plate. We're going to run this through, and I'm actually going to run it through twice, so frontwards and backwards, because I need to get all the way through 2 layers. And we did. Yay, that's awesome. That's exactly what I wanted. And now you can see how these are going to line up perfectly with the matching card. That's why that Stamparatus was so important. Okay, now I'm going to take and I'm going to adhere these onto the card base. All right, I put my white card base on the black cardstock, the black card base on the white cardstock. Now we can take those fabulous images. Let's put adhesive here on the back. So the black die cut is going to go here on the white card. Just kind of look before you press anything down. You see I've got like that little tip of the flower. I'm lining it up here, here. When you've got that set, you can give that a press. So that one is done. This one here, we're going to repeat that. Now, I do want to tell you, I did something a little different on my original. And I want to show you the option that you have. So if you'd like to do something a little different with your card, and I think this is going to show up better here on the black for you to see. But this one, I did some dry embossing. I used the time-worn type embossing folder on this piece before I added it. So if you like the clean and crisp, just go for it. But if you like to add that little bit of texture, feel free to take these pieces and run them through an embossing folder for a completely different look. All right, now with these 2 pieces, let's add our sentiment. Now this also comes from the Lovely and Lasting. We're going to be working with this basic black. And you know, you saw me earlier when I used that VersaMark, it's kind of hard to see. So I've got a little tip, and that is this. I'm going to have you start with this stamp, with the label stamp. By the way, this has some tiny little dots in it. Don't press too hard. All right, we want those to come off really nice and crisp. So again, you can probably just barely see that there. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and add that embossing powder, tap off the extra. See how I can now see this? I can see right where to stamp my sentiment. And now I will come in. I'm going to say thinking of you. And because that white is on there, I can see right where to stamp my thinking of you back into my white embossing powder. Yep, I'm just going to use what's still left here on the tray. At this point, we would heat set this just like I showed you earlier. When you are done heat setting it, you want to let this sit and cool off. Do not try to punch it while it's still hot because you can smear that embossing powder. So let's just set that one off to the side. And now we will do that same technique again. We're going to take our basic white cardstock. And you can see here, I just stamped in the Memento black ink, and that I was able to do easy peasy, same stamps. Remember to clean those off before you do that. All right, well now we can do that punching. So I'm going to come in with the Lasting Label punch, and I can give this one a quick punch. Of course, I'm going to repeat that with the black cardstock now that it's cool. I have put some Stampin' Dimensionals here on the back of both of my punched sentiments. I think this just adds a lot to the card. You kind of decide where you want this to go. For instance, depending on where you stamped yours, you might put it here, you might put it there. Where you die cut, you get creative with that. I'm just going to add mine down here at the bottom. Of course, I'll repeat that now with our heat embossed basic black. And that one can go right there. I think these look absolutely gorgeous. By the way, I did have you cut another piece. There was an additional piece of basic white, and that is for the inside of the black card because you know, I have a hard time writing on that. So you can just add that to the inside of your card. If you'd like to dress this up even more, I am a huge, huge fan of the jewel rhinestones. I love anything that blings. So I'm going to use my take your pick tool to kind of help me pick those up. I'm going to put, about 3 here on my black circle. With this one, I think I'm actually going to put it here so it pops a little bit more. I'm going to put it up here around the black part of my cardstock, just kind of random. I think it just adds a little something. There we go. I could add a few more, maybe some down here, but I just think that gives it just that little extra oomph. Guys, this is going to be a fantastic, obviously a thinking of you. So this could be a get well, sympathy, fantastic card. And of course, what's not to love that we're going to make 2 when we're really only making 1, but we might as well make 2, right? Let me show you another version of the card. I love how these cards came out. Now, you notice I used a different stamp. This time I decided to use the Blessings of Home. Again, it had a great big image, and that's what I needed for this card. Now, we did change up the colors, obviously. I did some very vanilla and some crumb cake. All my embossing was done in the copper embossing powder. Now, by the way, when you purchase these embossing powders, this collection is the metallics, and you get the copper, the gold, and the silver. And then for the other collection, which is the basics, black, white, and clear. So fabulous collections of embossing powders. As I said, they're going to last you a long, long time. So this one I did here in the copper. And I want you to notice something else I did. Can you see that this has popped a little bit? Instead of adhering this down normally, I decided to do it with Stampin' Dimensionals. So I hope you can see I took my frame and added it with Stampin' Dimensionals. And then I pressed my circle down inside. It was very easy, but it just kind of gave it a different look. And I wanted you to see some different options of what you could do there. And I do love the look of that popped image. You're a real blessing to everyone around you. These cards, easy, easy. And what's not to love about the bling already being on there with that copper embossing powder? And there you go, my friends. What a fun technique featuring the split negative technique. I hope that you'll give these a try. As I said, look through your stamps, find some with a great big image, emboss, have some fun, create, have these cards ready to go the next time you need a blessing card. Thank you so much for stopping by today. Hey, if you liked the video, would you give me a thumbs up on YouTube? I always appreciate that. And if you haven't subscribed, why not click that subscribe button, ring the bell? YouTube will let you know whenever I'm back with a new video, and I share twice a week with you here on my channel. I'd love to have you join. All right, my friends, that is all for me. Go create something wonderful and send it to a friend. See you next time. Bye-bye.